Yeah, welcome everyone. This is day 3, which is our number one mistake we're going to be talking about today. Hi, Heather, living in Iowa. Okay, welcome. I am curious where people are from. So let me know where you're from because that's always interesting to me. And also, if you're new to my programs, you could also put in if you've been on 3 days, because then I'm going to cheer for you because that's really good. And I'm just kind of curious who's actually seen the other 2 days. But we've arrived at the moment that everybody's been waiting for. And certainly we're going to get started here. So I'm revealing the number one home building mistake that leads to water damage and mold in your homes. Thank you so much for sticking with us for all 3 days. If you have been, Amy, good job from Richmond, Virginia, all 3 days. A huge fan. Thank you very much. That keeps me going. Honestly, I have to tell you, it's hard to talk to myself on these things and I don't see you. Massachusetts, Jamie, welcome. So I do appreciate your comments. We're trying to create a movement here to have better buildings. And I think it's happening. I do see so many more people in the space, but there's also a lot of information out there that's now moderately not great, So, but some of it's really good. So take my course and follow me to know what's really a myth and what's really good information. So again, thank you for being here. That commitment to stay with us is telling me that you're serious. You're serious about building a safe home for you and your family. If you haven't watched the past 2 sessions, be sure to catch up on those replays as soon as you can. They're going to be up until Saturday at midnight Eastern time. So just be thinking that my team wants to go to bed. So we're not going to be, it's Eastern time is the deadline at midnight. And then they come down. And anybody who doesn't know me, I'm Cheryl, licensed architect for over 35 years. And I learned about mold the hard way. And I learned it was an issue the hard way. I learned it affected health the hard way because it affected my family's health. Ultimately, one of my children, who was 10 at the time, and then 10 years later, my husband got really sick and was actually on disability. We had Lyme disease, but he got it way worse. And he's better now and doing great. And I've had autoimmune disease throughout all this, and I'm sure it was part of it because I know that in retrospect, that I grew up in a home that probably did have mold. So that journey has led me to be this perpetual student of building science. And my mission now is to help you understand the fundamentals so that you can make an informed decision for your own unique situation. My family is thriving now, and I feel really blessed about that. And so I want to give back. I want to help other people do the same thing, avoid the costly mistakes as much as possible. And if you want the full story, it's in some of my other videos, but there's a little bit more in day 1 and a little bit different in day 2, I think. For now, let's dive into today's big one. You've gotten a glimpse of what it takes to be a truly mold resistant home. But today's mistake is one that ties it all together. And here's the thing that bothers me most is that most homeowners don't even know about this one thing we're going to talk about today. And they should. We all should. So with so much flawed and incomplete information online, more and more know that mold solutions are popping up everywhere, that you have to be informed because the barrier to entry is very low. I can tell you that my license to be an architect required me to have a college degree that was accredited 5 or 6 years. I have 6, and it required 3 years of a professional experience working in an office before you could even sit for the test. And then the test itself was not open book, which most of these things are. My test was 4 days. The first 3 days were each 8 hours, and the last day was 12. It was offered once a year. And if you missed even one section, you didn't get your license, and you would wait another year to take whatever session you missed over again. And that is something that is regulated very closely, being able to build buildings. And so that's where my background is unique in this space. So having guidance from a building professional who has a deep experience about mold issues and the building process is really critical. And my talent, sometimes it is a curse, is seeing details in everything that other people overlook. But that served me well and served my clients extremely well. And no one will have obtained more insights than the professional who has done their own research to save their own families and themselves. And we find that in doctors as well. I've got my best help from doctors that have had the same thing that I did. So that's me. I've lived it. My children lived it. We spent years of significant money fixing stuff that should never have happened. So let's get into this number one. So mistake number one is not looking at the building as a whole system. That's the number one mistake. The building is a system. And here's why that's so devastating, because when you don't design and plan your home, and this is for people building for sure, but big renovations too, it needs to be designed and planned as a complete integrated system. And every other mistake, if you don't do that, every other mistake is more likely to be detrimental. So the kinds of things that I see all the time in terms of symptoms, some of these are the same as I've had the last 3 days. HVAC systems that grow mold. Some rooms are freezing cold while others are really hot, depending on if you want freezing cold or hot. Humidity that the AC, air conditioning, can't manage, or even high humidity when you're in the heating season. So you're running heat, which is very drying, you still have high humidity. Mold in attics, garages, ductworks, mini splits, and around plumbing and roofs that don't drain properly. No cohesive site plan. Well, I see that a lot. No HVAC plan that was ever drawn out. It was kind of like, here's the house, we need to put a furnace in it, and we need to have air conditioning and cooling, and it's an afterthought. No mechanical room designed to be in a heated and conditioned space. That's really important. No detailed roof plans. So I've seen many of those. And because once you learn to see this stuff, you're walking around and you see these roofs that are just not working. Like there's a roof draining into the side of a wall. It's not going to end well. And here's the worst part. Homeowners come to me and for consults, either after their drawings are done, I don't recommend that, or after the house is already built. And that's sometimes going to happen. We just bought this house, and they've already been completely designed with all these problems. And it's hard to tell someone that some of the decisions really are difficult to correct. Foundation is going to be a big one, and really bad roof drainage is another one. Foundations are really difficult to fix if they're not done the first time. We get one chance. So most of our decisions need to be made during the design phase, and that includes like early design. So the solution to designing buildings as a system is to design the whole system from the beginning and not let those major decisions that are kind of put off, like electrical systems. We're going to go through all these heating, air conditioning systems. Don't let those be an afterthought. So let's break that down. The first one I keep mentioning is HVAC. This is a thorn in my side. So where does the equipment go? Attics and garages are always going to be a problem because they're not the same temperature as the temperature of the air you're trying to create. So even when you insulate those, they do need a lot of air. If you're designing a building, you need a mechanical room. You can put equipment in the basement, and that is a good reason to have a basement if it's possible to have. Sometimes they can go in the crawl space, but then the crawl space needs to be a short basement. But it needs, and then you're going to condition your crawl space and you're going to condition your basement, because around the equipment needs to be the same heat temperature and cooling temperature and humidity as you're trying to put out. And then it doesn't have to work so hard. And we don't have all these other problems. What about the ductwork layout? Okay, so we start out with this bubble diagram and we're laying out our floor plans for where we want the bedroom as morning sun over here. We want the kitchen to be adjacent to the backyard, or, whatever the situation happens to be. Here we have views, here we don't. So we're going to put the laundry room where there's no views. At that point is when we also need to stop then and say, okay, this is a nice way. I like the orientation of all these rooms. Now let's talk about the HVAC. How would the HVAC work? Heating, ventilation, air conditioning, that's what HVAC stands for. How would that work with this bubble diagram that I just drew, or this graph paper design that I came up with? That's the time. What about how these ducts are going to go? We want the mechanical equipment kind of centrally located as much as possible. The duct runs to have metal ducts and not have to do flex duct need to be straight. So how's that going to happen? Where is it going to happen so that it's not in your face, like running right through your living rooms, right above your ceiling? This can all be designed. And don't forget about dryer vents and exhaust fan ducts. They have to go somewhere. Those are best if they can go straight out a wall, which means you have to locate your dryer on an exterior wall. And your bathrooms might be good to have an exterior wall so that you can get your exhaust fans exhausted really easily. But all these decisions affect your floor plan and your roof design, everything. Then there's the plumbing. Okay, plumbing's super expensive, and you can have your bathrooms all over the place. 3 bathrooms, you have them in 3 different corners of the house, but that's not going to be cost effective. And number one, and two, you'll have soil stacks going through the roof, 3 instead of 1. If you can start to cluster your plumbing elements, then you have the ability to have plumbing walls that you could make accessible, and then you could be able to open those up and look inside every now and then if you ever need to check to see if anything needs servicing, and save yourself money. So, and then there's the question of where your water heater will go. Well, it's usually going to go with the mechanical equipment, but that's all interconnected. And the other thing I will say is don't put your plumbing on exterior walls. And this, I would say in any climate, but it's even more important in cold climates because there's a potential for freezing and you've compromised your insulation by filling up the exterior wall with a pipe. So especially things like showers and the shower controls, never on an exterior wall. Kitchen sinks and stuff, you can do that. You can come up through the floor, and bathroom sinks the same way. Then there's roof systems. Okay. So I see people who they're ready to build and there's no roof plan on their drawings. And I don't even know how they're going to do this. The roof can be really, really complicated if it's an afterthought, which means we have this design that we figured out and we haven't really figured out how the roof's going to work, but it's going to work. And we have ins and outs, and that makes all these valleys, and we can end up with a bathtub up there that's collecting water. Or this situation where a roof is sloping into a wall, which is really awful. So roofs also require attic ventilation. They, if you do end up with any ducts coming through there, even to go exhaust outside through a roof for an exhaust fan, we want to think about all those things and make sure they get done well. So what I recommend, and what I was taught in school actually, is that you can do your rough plan or whatever on your floor plan, get a little idea of where you'd put your mechanical room and how the ducts might run, and then do your roof. And then you make a simple roof. And then maybe the simple roof doesn't fit, or there's all this outdoor area that's open that you don't want. And then you go backwards and you make your plan fit under the simple roof. So it's a back and forth. Buildings are like a sculpture. So, you're playing with it and you're moving things back and forth at all different levels so that the whole building is going to work together. Electrical systems, that needs to be thought about too. Where's the electric panel going to go? Usually it's going to go the first closest it can be to the street. We don't want that on our bedroom walls because there's really, really legitimate EMF concerns with that. Electromagnetic fields, that's not healthy. So you want to think about that. Where is that coming in? Where's your water shut off would be another one. But in terms of electric, we want to factor in low EMF solutions. And that can be when you're pricing out what kind of wiring you're going to use, shut-off switches. So I found that I had an induction cooktop in one of the houses that I built. And just when I was getting started with all this, actually, and I realized when I started measuring EMFs that the induction cooktop, even when it wasn't on, was putting off a tremendous amount of EMFs. And that's that's kind of scary because you can just be standing next to your stovetop and you're getting microwaved. So I would put a shut off there. If I were to do it again and I had an induction, I did like the induction, truthfully, I would have a shut off where my other switches are. I can just turn it off. We're not cooking today. We need to, boil some water. Okay. I'll turn it back on, turn it back off. That's what I would do. And I don't care if my clock never looks right in that case. And then the other one that's actually in a scary way, funny, but it is a scary thing, is that where we have water and electricity mixing. So you have your water pipes coming in right above your electric panel. It seems obvious that you wouldn't do that, but I actually see it all the time. You definitely don't want to mix water and electricity very close to each other. So the key principle here is before designing all systems and major components to do them all to the same level of detail. So you're not going to have your construction drawings done and your kitchen layout out and all your cabinets selected and you haven't even looked at your roof yet. That's what I mean. So you do everything at the same level. So it's kind of like, it's called schematic design. And then there's design development where you're kind of making the design a little more refined. And then the third phase is construction documents where you start putting numbers down. and you start making sure things actually work and how would they build this. But they all need to come up with this, all this information needs to be the same way. So you might have an electric plan, you might have an HVAC plan, you would definitely have a roof plan, and you should definitely have a site plan. And just keep modifying them along the way. And you ask your builder to do that for you along the way if he's not doing it naturally. So change your building design as necessary to make it work for all your goals. Stop the moisture burdens. Buildings are a system, all these things that I keep saying. Design all systems and major components to the same level of detail before moving on. I can't say that enough. And guess what? This applies to every building type. I mentioned these building types before, and I was looking at the list and I said, I have actually had mold clients in every single one of these. So number one was traditional home, barn dominium, A-frame, or, these kind of, A-frame type buildings. Geodesic domes. I've had actually, I think 2 or more clients in geodesic domes. Tiny homes. I can't count how many tiny homes that I've consulted on. Modular homes, 100%. I've had some of those. Container homes, yes. And one that I added to the list that wasn't on the previous days was straw bale homes. Yeah, I had a straw bale home client that was, boy, when that gets wet, it's really a mess. Details matter. I can't say that enough either. None of these building types are immune from water damage and most moisture issues, even if you, especially if you don't plan them well. Every building's potentially can have mold and water damage first, then mold. But the fundamentals don't change. Buildings are systems. We want to plan them that way from day one. Okay, so now you've seen all 3 mistakes. And then mistake number 1 today was not planning our entire building as a system and thinking of all those pieces that affect everything, especially electric and plumbing and air conditioning and heating. These 3 mistakes are just the tip of the iceberg. In the Building a Safe Home, we cover 100, like more than 100 critical decisions. I actually didn't count them, but there's so many, I can't count them. Every single one of them matters. And there's so many unique conditions that if this, then that, kind of a thing. But every single one can make a difference between whether a home supports your family's health or one that's going to make you sick. It's not necessary to learn these lessons the expensive way. It's not. You don't have to make all these mistakes. Don't beat yourself up if you've made some, because I have too. And sometimes it's not me. So one of my bathroom leak, quick story, I had multiple bathrooms in the house. And there was one place that I didn't check that before they didn't waterproof right behind the escutcheon plate for the controller. Water was getting behind the escutcheon plate from running down the wall, and over like 8 years, it started to collect there, and we had 3 inches of mold. That was super toxic, and it was only 3 inches. And I had corrected that everywhere, but this one bathroom. So don't beat yourself up. It's always good to learn and be involved with people who help remind you of all these things, which is us. So let me tell you about the Build a Safe Home course one final time before we get to the Q&A. And I see people are putting their questions in there, so feel free to start loading them into the Q&A box. My signature program is the Build a Safe Home course. And as I've mentioned before, I've worked with hundreds, if not thousands of clients dealing with water damage since 2016. I did create this program, though, because I wanted to be able to find the most cost-effective way for people to learn the stuff that I had without paying for my consulting for 20 hours, whatever it would take, 50 hours probably. This is not just a course that you watch and forget about. It's kind of a living, breathing, interactive thing that we keep updating and changing. You do get me. A lot of the courses that I see that I've been looking at in this field and as a business owner, you're talking to their assistants, but you're going to talk to me. So, but my team has also become an expert. And Crystal in particular has been with me for many years, and she knows a ton. One thing she knows more than anybody is where stuff is in my course or where stuff is easy to find. And so she helps people all the time. We do have a community of homeowners. That's great to be with other people like you, and monthly live support where I come on and answer your questions. You can send them in advance or you can be on the call. And we have lifetime access to my content. Quick reality check. I said this the other days. This program is not for everyone. It's not for people who are looking for quick fixes and magic solutions, and the easy button. Site and climate is unit 1. That's 7 video lessons. Remember a mistake from day number 1? That was site drainage. We go deeper there, 7 video lessons and a bonus lesson that I made because that wasn't enough. We made one specifically on site grading to protect your foundation, like that connection. So that's there. Unit 2 is building design. 11 video sessions. And that's really where this mistake we're talking about today lives. Systems thinking comes into play. We cover floor planning with all systems in mind, HVAC, electrical, plumbing, bathrooms, and how they integrate and things to keep in mind. And then there we have bonus lessons about, one is all about HVAC. We have there just a whole lesson on shower and tub installation and moisture prevention. I think it's more than a half an hour. We have a different one on toilets and sinks. So one of my leaks that I have experienced is a toilet seal leak. Yeah. So, and then we have a final one on sustainability and energy, like what's real. I used to teach this topic actually. So it's fun for me to see how things keep changing. But yeah, we do want to be energy efficient. We want to save money on our costs for energy. Unit 3 is foundation, 10 video lessons, deep dive into slabs, crawl spaces, and basements. None are perfect on their own, but they all can be really great if we detail them correctly. We have bonus lessons on crawl spaces and one on basement mold and solutions and another one on slabs. So they can talk about this stuff forever. The roof, 8 video lessons, just talking about the roof, your first line of defense. It's your umbrella over your building. Roof styles, venting, flashing, attics, chimneys, all that in one place. We have bonus lessons on chimneys alone and one on attics. Unit 5 is 7 lessons. We're talking about flashing and rain screens and openings and walls and windows and doors and how to do those right. And there's just a lot to know. We also have bonus lessons about stucco there and insulation and waterproofing windows and doors is like separate on its own. Unit 6 is understanding our contracts and working with contractors. So how to protect yourself legally. There's definitely some things you want to have in your contracts, and you want to be leery of when the contract is really, really not protecting you at all. You got to be leery about that, how to hire the right team and manage the relationship. And we have a bonus lesson in there about hiring and working with builders and contractors. That was really an interesting one to make. Then we added one again from when we originally started selling this course, and it is on building materials. So there are things we do need to know about building materials. And we have a class on vapor barriers and vapor retarders. Everything I can talk for. So I can talk for a half an hour on that. Flooring facts, all about different kinds of flooring to avoid mold. Brick and masonry is a topic in and of itself. Wood materials masterclass. And then I also have a wood and moisture in wood products masterclass that it talks a lot about what you need to know to avoid having lumber mold, which is a real thing, but it doesn't have to be. So the interactive element, the monthly live Q&A sessions with me. And that alone is worth, with that in the course, you're good to go, honestly. The private community group I love being a part of. And I think it's really helpful for people to have somewhere to ask questions and spur of the moment and get feedback from not only me, but other people doing the same thing with the same interests, sharing experience. People post photos sometimes. I always like feedback and suggestions, and sometimes we get some really good ones. My team actively supports the group, and so you're not just getting me, you get my whole team, and you don't have to go through this alone. When you join Build a Safe Home, you have a support network that wants you to ask questions, and I've worked with lots of builders. The contractors have been better than the builders, honestly, but they don't want to answer. Some of them don't ever want to talk about anything. They don't want you to ask any questions. They know everything. Avoid that if you can. You need to protect your investment and your family's health, and that's what this course is about. And we have $800 in additional bonuses. Actually, we have somebody talking about insurance claims. We have somebody talking about defects, and then we have me talking about other stuff that isn't in the course. So we added it. So all that course content is $5,000 plus the bonuses. Here's what some students are saying. A couple quick testimonials. Lots of information from a unique vantage point that is not offered anywhere else. Building a safe home course is the best money ever spent. And that was Karen. who's a custom home builder. And then Ray put in a comment, and I think he has a video one on my website. It's such an eye-opening experience to go through the course just from the street, to be able to see someone's home and see that there could be potential for moisture issues was something that he learned in the course. And most people feel like they wish they joined sooner, because honestly, it's a life skill. It's a life skill that you're always going to have this knowledge, and you're always going to be living in homes. And so if you're planning to build or renovate in the next 1 to 2 years, now's the time to come on in. You'll have lifetime access, and you can go at your own pace, and you can refer back whenever you want to. And when you do build, if you're not building right away, you're going to be ready. So let's get to those Q&As. Heather has asked a question about, we will be building on a slab and we'll be leaving the slab unfinished on the interior. Would polishing the cement be okay? Will it still be able to release moisture? Yeah, I do think anything that's adhered that doesn't have an airspace. So mold wants oxygen. Yeah. So if you laid a sheet of plastic over it, there could be oxygen under there. If you put laminate over it, there definitely will be oxygen. If you put carpet over it, there would be oxygen. When you're actually using something that's penetrating the concrete or sealing it, polishing it so that it's the concrete itself, then you have the best possible chance of having that still be able to release any moisture. Of course, do a proper vapor barrier under your slab with a gravel capillary break, and we have all those details in the course. And get your site drainage right. One chance to get that right, but especially on a slab, you definitely want to make sure it's high enough. So, but yeah, good question. I'm right. My feet right now are on a stained and steel concrete floor, and if you don't have moisture problems, it will be great. Even most of these have some vapor open qualities to them. You can ask about that with the products you use. Heather's asking another question here. So from Heather, can electric meters be placed away from a house by code? I really don't want a meter on my house, even if I can opt out of a smart meter. I believe you can mount them on a post, but that's if there are restrictions, it's going to vary by location and municipality or jurisdiction. So it's not so bad on the side of a garage. I would say it's really right next to the wall, which is why, like in a 10 by 12 bedroom, and you just know where to put the bed, and your head of your bed is by one. You don't want that. But I do believe you can put them somewhere else, but that just needs to be planned. So you could put them on a fence surrounding your garbage cans or something. I'm pretty sure that, but check your location, because every location can make their own laws to some of these details. Good question. Valerie, is there a way? So Valerie's question is there a way to ensure a new construction home is safe or well built if it's already completed? I assume no. If no, then you must start with the builder from the beginning, or could you review their drawings and plans retroactively and decide if the home is well constructed or not? I guess ideally you'd be on site checking their work regularly, daily. I don't want to wait for 2 years to go through the building process, but we may have to. That's a really good question, Valerie. So just so you know, full disclosure, I'm living in a builder home right now, and I rented one for a year. So the house that we built that we were very safe in and loved was too big with all my kids left the nest. And we decided to sell. It sold very quickly within a week. And then we had to figure out where we're going. I don't recommend that because it's really stressful, but we did do it. And we did end up deciding to buy a new construction home because the stuff for rent that wasn't new construction was pretty nasty. And I just used the same things that, the same set of eyes, I guess, on the stuff that we were renting. And both houses had walkout basements. One was finished, and so I knew that there was a limited life and had some defects that we were renting, and we couldn't do things to that there was a limited amount of time we could live there, but brand new, and we were in a climate where I could open the windows a lot, so we took a chance, and we were good there. Would we be good, 4 years later? I don't know about that. That felt risky. So we did then end up buying a house in the same neighborhood that also had a walkout basement, but that had an unfinished basement. So when you have an unfinished basement, you can see a lot of things. And that would be the other thing that I would recommend and that I was looking for. Otherwise, you would have to take a risk and just say you're going to take out all the exterior walls and look at it. We check the site drainage, so that's easy to check on the outside. Look at the roof closely, look at other details, and so we did buy a 3-year-old house. It was, and did work on it right from the get-go. We took out 3-year-old carpeting we removed on the main floor and put in engineered wood, and then we did finish the lower level partially. That's where I am right now in this office, and right out I could walk right out my patio door and be on a patio, so it's like a slab on grade at this point. And we did the best we can. We did a lot of things really well. The shop we put in a bathroom that was done well. So you have to kind of see what you have to work with. I've also renovated homes, and I've seen homes that I would love to renovate because maybe they're older and they just have really good bones. But it's still looking at the things like site and foundation and seeing, can you fix them? We bought a home that was, the basement was actually flooded when we bought it, but I could completely see what was going on and I knew I could fix it, and we did. And we lived there for about 5 years. And I don't think it was that wasn't the problem. The one where we were exposed and my daughter was sick, that was a 50s ranch. That was nothing wrong with the house. Again, good bones. However, I didn't think to check the HVAC system, and all that entailed was looking inside a vent to see, basically in the living room, I removed the couple screws and looked. So you'd have to figure out how you could do that when you're looking to buy, but certainly have an inspection, and maybe there's a way you can put a camera in through the vent or something. You just ask them, can I look at the vent? Can you take the top off? Can I look in the vent? When we've looked to buy houses, we've gone in the crawl spaces. And then to this, and one I'm thinking of, we actually had a reaction. It looked really good down there. It was really clean, but we definitely had a reaction. There was another one that made me claustrophobic, and it's like, there's no way I could make this work. So there's stuff like that you take, it's trade-offs, but yeah, I know it's hard. Jamie, she's saying thanks. So I appreciate that, Jamie. I now know that I have a mold problems in my basement, kitchen, and bathroom. How do I prioritize the problems? Well, I would definitely put a dehumidifier in your basement no matter what, if you don't have one already. I probably would start with the basement because that may be the biggest one. I don't know, what all you have going on, kitchen, oven wall. I'm going to say that the basement, so air moves from low to high. And so whatever's going on in the basement is going on is contributing to the whole house. And I've seen the worst mold possible usually in the basement. So that may be the place to start, but you start with kind of the stuff we're talking about in the course of fixing your site drainage. However, you can, the best you can, looking up at your roof, seeing what are all the external things that I can fix, especially now in the winter. There's some things that are easier than others, but if you have carpeting anywhere in your home, that would probably be the first thing I would say is live on the subfloor, live on the concrete slab, just get rid of the carpeting, but be very careful how you take that out. And if you go to my, it's a Mold Experts bundle, there's a video made, and my daughter, young adult with my 85-year-old father, removed carpeting in her apartment. and she did pictures for me to share how to do it. So there's a lot of things you can do, and I wish you well. Holly, you just said don't mix water and electric in a wall. Well, not really in a wall. I'm talking about electrical panel and the water supply. Any suggestions if the bathroom plumbing wall and all the other water lines running through it and kitchen oven are shared? Well, all plumbing walls that have a lot of pipes in them should be they should be 6 to 8 inches, just because you cut out, the pipes are big enough. The drain pipes especially are big enough that they take out a lot of the structure. So I would probably try to do the electric higher than the plumbing if that's going to work, just because if the water leaks, it won't be leaking onto the electrical. The wires themselves, it would be the outlet that would be the biggest concern. But yeah, it's definitely something to think about. So I said kudos for you for noticing that. And it's just something to think about. So you might make the wall thicker if you can. I don't know if it's new construction or what you're thinking of. And then, with electric appliances, you always need to see how far away can the plug be. Sometimes there's a range, and they could be off to the side in a way that doesn't interfere with some other things you have going on. Good question, Holly. Valerie's got a question here. Or is it better to buy a home that's 2 to 5 years old so issues have revealed themselves? I don't think it matters. Actually, the older some issues are hard to be revealing themselves. All houses have a tendency, especially new, and we did have to fix the site drainage because it's settled. So they didn't do the compacted soil next to the foundation. I would just assume that's going to be the case, that you have to do that. I don't have a problem with new. When we rented new, it's just that they did more to it than it's hard to rip out brand new carpeting. I will say that we actually sold, we didn't sell it. I think the 3-year-old carpeting we gave to our contractors, they wanted it. It was perfect condition, like in guest rooms, bedrooms, under beds. So you can sometimes get rid of stuff really easily. So that's another thought. But I'm honestly a fan of older buildings a lot in a lot of situations. That's where you can see stuff that's, if it's got nasty wallpaper and it's priced for the fact that it needs all new redecorating, then that can be an advantage because you're going to rip everything out anyway and start over. But you needs good bones, which keep following me and taking my courses, and you'll start to get an idea of what good bones is. Okay, so we have Heather again. Should our goal be to build a tight home with ERV, HRV? Is a tight home healthier, or is it just more energy efficient? So in the Build a Safe Home course, we have 2 interviews about HRVs and ERVs. It depends on your climate. I say generally, if you're in a really dry climate, the HRV or ERV might be okay if you have the ability to turn it off. You should always have the ability to turn it off. If the code requires you not to have that, you say, well, you need an ability for servicing. The problem is humidity. So HRVs and ERVs will say that they dehumidify. They manage humidity. And the truth of it is, and if you ask a company, they'll tell you this, that say 95, 96% humid air is coming in, and then it might come out the other side at 93. So you're still adding a ton of humidity burden to your home with all that fresh air. So I only would recommend systems that condition that air at the source. Putting in a whole house dehumidifier is like saying, okay, I'm going to open my house to the flood, and then we'll just have a big sump pump all the water. It's the same thing with the air. You're opening your house to all this humid air, and then you're expecting that you're going to have it all in one place to be pulled back out. So, yeah, I haven't actually never had an HRV ERV. This builder house has like basically a pipe that goes from inside to outside. It's like an open window. So truth be told, we close it, we block it off in the winter because it's literally a vent pipe that's open to the outside. And in the house that I built that I didn't put one in for a number of reasons that I won't go into now, but we just opened windows when we needed fresh air. And it worked fine. And that is a lot of what they're talking about this air mixing and stuff. It's pretty minuscule in my understanding of what all that mixing does. But it can be a good thing. But if you're in Florida, I don't know that if you don't have dehumidification happening at the source of your fresh air, then I wouldn't do it. That doesn't mean you're not going to have other problems. We are building really tight homes, and we do need makeup air. So when we run our exhaust fan, we open a window. Everybody can do that. So you're creating negative air when you run an exhaust fan. And yes, you should, whether it's a bathroom or a kitchen. So you need a window open somewhere to say, okay, fresh air come in right here, not come through my wall, not come through my crawl space, not come through my attic and round windows that have been leaking for years. So there's a lot to understand about all this. But the HVAC course, I think I talk about that. It's in the Building a Safe Home course. Holly's asking, any concerns for moisture coming up from the concrete pad under the framing wood that lays on top of the concrete that could possibly get mold under the wood that you would never see? Yes. Good question. You're going to be a good detective, Holly, if you're not already. So they should be putting a sill sealer. So it's this foam that wood should never actually be in direct contact with concrete. They do allow it if it's treated wood, but most of the treated wood they're using is borate treated, which actually can't really get wet. Just know that your slab's going to get wet from the side in rain events. It's just going to happen. So what I recommend is a sill sealer, and I did it in my finished basement here, finished lower level here that is on grade where I'm at, but all these interior walls that you see have a sill sealer under them. And it's not something that the builder typically does. He did it because I wanted it, but it's not expensive. So it's a roll of foam sealer so that my wood is not in contact with the concrete. So good question. Ashley has a question. I have land, but I haven't found a builder yet. I would love to do a conditioned attic with a vapor diffusion port in Oklahoma, mixed climate. I haven't found any builder or roofer that has done a vapor diffusion port here, so not sure what to do about the attic space. Is vented okay? If you're building from scratch, Ashley, I would do a mechanical room on the main floor, and I would put use framing for your attic floor that's big enough. So whether it's floor trusses that have holes in them, and they can be designed so that some of them are rectangular holes, so your ductwork is running through that space inside your conditioned space, and then you don't need a conditioned attic. If you're building from scratch, you can really do this. In Oklahoma, you have a lot of heat, so cooling out of the ceiling is good. You may want to have some supplemental floor heat or radiant for the winter because heating out of the ceiling isn't very effective. But that's going to happen if you have your system in the attic anyway. The mechanical room on the main floor is the best way to go because it's going to be easy for you to remember to change your filters. It'll be easier for you to see if the condensate drain is leaking. Where in the attics, they tend to get forgotten. Vapor diffusion ports are not rocket science, by the way, just so you know. I wouldn't worry about that if somebody's never done one. It's fairly new concept. It's actually just a ridge vent that has a vapor permeable material over it, like Tyvek type of material. So it's not I'd be really surprised if you found anybody that ever done one because it's literally in the past few years something that has been discussed. I've seen research maybe 5 years ago about in warm climates just allowing the warm moist air to vent, and that can be just a ridge vent. I heard somebody say something in colder climates that if it's a ridge vent that it could make more air coming up from below, but I'm not sure that's a problem. If you have fans in your attic that are actually creating negative pressure and blowing air out, then that can do all kinds of crazy things that I don't recommend having fans. But basically, a vapor diffusion port is a ridge vent with a vapor diffusion piece of fabric over it. That's all it is. So, but I would really endeavor to have a mechanical room on your main floor and then just have enough space. You design this in between your ceiling of your first floor and your attic floor, which is going to have a structure anyway to hold up the drywall on the bottom. And so that you can run your ducts through there and put your insulation over the top and walk around up there in the attic and see how everything's going there. But so that your ductwork is in the conditioned space. That's a good question. Ashley, I think you're going to get there. Ashley has another question. How do you access the ducts if they're in between materials? Well, you don't, okay. So in a second floor, so it would be the same as if you have a 2-story building and your second floor is on top of your first and you have ducts in the ceiling. And the way that they would clean those is through the supply vents and the return vents. So they just take the cover off and then they can go in. Somewhere there's a trunk line that is good to have an access panel to if you can figure out a way to do that. Oftentimes they get into it right by the furnace when they're cleaning. So I've cleaned many. I don't do the cleaning, but because I know about it, we cleaned the rental. We paid $500 to clean the rental ducts and we didn't get that reimbursed. The house we bought 3 years old, we paid for another $500 to clean those vents. We did our own house twice because we lived there 14 years. The second time they really didn't find very much, but we did it anyway as a precaution. And we had 2-story house and there was ducts in between the floors. they're not that long. When they're going, there's a trunk line that if you can get in one end of it is all you need, because then they can go down that, and then the feeder lines come off of that to the trunk. So it's totally doable. Totally doable. Just think of it like a 2-story house, only your second story is your unfinished attic and an unheated attic. I see in the chat, can I be the architect representative to review my building plans prior to the start of the project? Or do I have to buy the course for this to happen? Yes, you would have to be. I do. Well, you can always schedule a consult and I can look at your plans, but we do have a discounted individual consulting for people in the Build a Safe Home course. So I didn't mention that. This is the time to get that extra bonus for yourself. And yes, if you're one of my students, then we have discounted. My fees for consulting are discounted, so we can definitely be on. And that's the only people I do that for. Oh, we got another one. Jamie, I own a duplex. Jamie saying, when I own a duplex, when putting in a new tub and shower unit on the rental side 13 years ago, I saw a lot of black mold on the backing of the insulation in between the studs. The plumber didn't do anything about it, installed the shower unit. Can that mold spread to my side of the house? Yes. So it depends on your construction, how much it is, because in a duplex, in theory, they should have a firewall in between the two units, and there shouldn't be an easy way for air to move from one side to the other. For instance, you shouldn't have an outlet that goes from one side to the other, openings like that. However, the building air currents are really complicated, how all that works. And I would say we just don't know where the water is coming from. So like, what if usually those firewalls go all the way up to the roof? What if there's actually a leak at the roof that's leaking in between these two walls? And there could be on the other side of the insulation on your side, there could be mold. So there's a lot of unknowns in that situation, Jamie. So I would say it's not good so insulation is, especially probably batt insulation, which I'm assuming you had, acts as a filter. So air currents move through it. And if it was black, that means it's acting as a chimney, which doesn't surprise me in a duplex when you have a firewall in between. And that means somewhere, it could be at the foundation, or I don't know what kind of foundation it is. It could be somewhere down low that it's coming from, but it's air currents moving through the insulation, carrying dirt and dust, which does become the food source for mold. And if there's high humidity there, then that's going to also make that mold thrive. So mold isn't growing and feeding off the insulation itself. It's feeding off the dirt and dust that's trapped in the insulation that got there from air currents moving through the insulation, probably low to high in a chimney effect. But where is the water coming from? We don't really know. Could be a lot of things. Tough problem. Good question. So, okay, one more. We're getting to the end here. Can you talk about the pros and cons of cleaning air ducts? My mold remeter said that he worries about doing air duct cleaning for mold sensitive homeowners because it can stir up more issues, release mold spores, et cetera, that might have been previously affecting indoor air quality. Let's think about this. Your air ducts are carrying the air into your building. They're carrying the air that's conditioned in around your house. Not cleaning them means that all that's in there, and in my case, I had aspergillus in my ducts, is just getting carried on the air currents. I can't imagine we could ever have recovered in our home without doing the ducts. And I'm going to be the first one to say that I hired a scam company. Again, Mold Experts Bundle, you can buy just that video on air duct cleaning, to be truthful. And you can hear my whole story, see pictures of my kids in there and the mess that was made because I called them out they were a scam and I kicked them out. And then they made a mess because they were a scam. I recommend knowing exactly what you need to do in the duct cleaning so that you, one, don't get scammed, and that you're watching. And I was like, oh, you don't have to be here. I'm like, I'm totally here. I'm going to be watching every single thing you do. and if they're not okay with that, then they're not coming over. I'm not paying them. So, because they'll skip steps. And it's like, oh, I'm going to not do that. Because, they said they weren't going to take the cover off the return air vent because it had been painted. It was stuck to the paint, or it had been painted, and now that's, and I'm like, okay. I said, no. We're Where's a razor blade? We're just going to take it off. And it was so much drywall dust in there. So in new construction, especially, drywall dust is silica dust. You can get a disease called silicosis from it. And the drywall dust is super, super hard to get out of ducts. I will say that, but it's also even more hard to get out of your lungs, and it's very toxic. People end up dying of this later in life. So no, I completely disagree with anybody. I would challenge that you're not going to clean your ducts because you're going to make a bigger mess. You could make a mess if you don't do it right. And if somebody does, and so that's why I recommend educating yourself on how to do it right. And this happened to me, so I have the resources to help you with that. And then you have an eagle eye on it. And yeah, there's no way my daughter would have recovered if we didn't clean her ducts. No way. Mm-mm. So good question though, because I see a lot of people saying that, and I just have to like turn away because I can't correct everyone in every post that I see pop up. That's not my post, especially. Well, there you have it. So we've done it. You guys have done it. Congratulations. My top 3 building home mistakes that you need to avoid to prevent water damage and mold in your house. I hope this program was valuable for you. Here's what I really want you to take away though. Building a mold resistant home, truly mold resistant home, isn't buying the right products or following the latest trends. Be careful, be careful, be careful with the hype. It's about understanding the fundamentals. And that's what I teach. That's what I share. Understanding how buildings work as systems, understanding where moisture problems originate, understanding the details that separate success from failure. Knowledge is what protects you. And now that knowledge is power. So it's going to protect you from contractors who cut corners, and they do. Sometimes they just don't know. It's going to protect you from trendy solutions. I mean, I see them all the time. Stuff that we've tried before, and now somebody's trying it again that don't actually work. It's going to protect you from making expensive mistakes that affect your family's health. And that's hard. It's really a bummer when that happens. Been there. So if you want in-depth education on every aspect of a mold-aware building, the doors are open to the course now with the bonuses. And so snag that now and join us here. Everything we covered this week is just scratching the surface of what's inside the program. Just know that. The top 3 list that we talked about here today, which is way more complicated than just 3 things, even that is just the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more. And we tackle it. The systems thinking approach is woven through every unit. It's in everything that I do. You get ongoing support from me and my team. So my team is putting links in the comments. I'd love to see you as a student here, and I'd love to support you on your journey. I want you to know this. You being here, investing this time to educate yourself, asking questions that are really good questions that you have, already makes you different. And those are the kind of people I want to be around. And you're going to be the ones that are going to be successful. You're part of this movement to demand more from the building industry than we're getting, to demand healthier homes, to demand transparency, to demand the details that matter. We have to speak up. We do. So thank you for being a part of that movement. Like I said, share, like and subscribe so that there's more people that are hearing about this and learning. And thank you for trusting me with your time this week. I do really appreciate it. And thank you for caring about your family's health enough to be here. And keep asking questions, keep demanding excellence, and keep prioritizing your family's health. You got this. Even if it seems bleak and you don't know how you're going to do all this, hang in there and know that you're on the right track. Check your email for the checklist. Go forth and live in a healthier home. Thanks again for being here. Bye.